Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We're here with another very special edition of WOWSA Live with one of the Ocean Seven's swimmers. Thomas, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here, and I appreciate the fact that you're up in the very early hours of the morning in America.
It's okay. Open water swimming never closes. But Thomas, take us back to your path to open water swimming. It is unusual.
Yes, no, I will take you back to my path with open water swimming. So, I suppose the very beginning of my swimming life, it started as a very young boy. My mother was quite a good swimmer, and she got me into swimming as a young kid, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I swam competitively as a schoolboy, but it didn't really go anywhere. I was a good swimmer, but never an upper echelon type swimmer. Like good at school, but that would be kind of as far as it would have gone. And then we had rugby in Australia, which is kind of similar to what it would be like, say, NFL, like at the school level. Yeah. And I was very good. And I had a lot of my friends that went on to go and play rugby, which would be like, I suppose, the equivalent for an NFL side in Australia. Yeah. And I was never quite at that level again. And so I basically was at home one day and I was watching a kind of a documentary on a person that swam the English Channel. And I'd seen that they were like 56 and they'd swum 34 kilometers. And I was thinking, I was an athlete that could have done something, but I didn't really do anything. And I've been good with cold water all my life. I'm swimming with cold, always good with cold conditions. I'm still, even in winter in Australia, I'm in a t-shirt right now. And so it just seemed to me, the English Channel just all of a sudden said, I thought this is going to be something that I'm going to try and attempt with complete disrespect, to be completely honest. So what happened was I basically saw that the English Channel was something to do. And straight away, I went and looked it up on Google because I said to Dad, I said, I could do that. He goes, oh, well, then why don't you go do it? So I was like, fine. And just being completely stubborn, I looked up the English Channel and I found out that, it was 34 kilometers. It was going to be in cold water. And I was like, oh, you know what? I can still thinking I could do it. And I basically booked a trip to England and organised, I can't remember how much money I had. I think I had like $3,000 in my account at the time. And I was just about to finish a teaching degree. And so I paid my deposit. I graduated from teaching and I thought, what better? I'll go do a year overseas teaching in England and I'll swim the English Channel while I'm there. And what I did was I was always never a very organised person, which is not great when you're doing ocean swimming, as I'm sure many people can attest to that are watching this, or yourself included, that you need to be organised. And so I'd organised to live in an area in England where there was one 25-metre swimming pool and half of the area swum in it. So you couldn't do real swimming there. And I'd moved to a port town in Southampton. So there was no beaches to swim, it was just ports. And I'd realised that I had my English Channel swim coming up in a few months and I'd really done very little training. Maybe when I was in Australia before I left, maybe 3 days a week, maybe an hour each time.
Wow.
And then I'd moved to England and I was swimming in about 4 months' time and that's how much training I'd done. And so luckily they did have a summer break over there, which was about a month before my swim. And for about maybe 3 weeks before my swim, I swam every day for about, I'd say 3 to 4 hours. And that was my equivalent. That was my training. It was about 3 weeks before I did the English Channel. And then I took off and attempted the English Channel for the first time.
Wow. Well, now what had been your longest swim until that point?
I'd done 4 hours about a week before I'd done the English Channel.
Really? That's it? No.
That was the longest swim I did.
No Rottnest Channel swim?
No Rottnest Channel swim. No. The longest swim I'd ever done in Australia would have been, I reckon, the equivalent to an hour.
Wow. And how old were you there at this time?
I was 23 or 24. I think 24 actually.
Okay. Now at this point, you're just looking at the English Channel. You're not thinking Ocean 7, correct?
No. I know. Just the English Channel. I don't even think I had a concept of what the Ocean 7 was at that particular time.
Got it.
So for me, it was this goal to do this swim. And I was completely focused on it. It's funny, even though I didn't train all that much, there was so much mental energy involved in it because my sister passed away from SIDS when she was about 6 months. And it was something that kind of really was very big and emotional in my family. And we were raising money for for a charity called SIDS and Kids in Australia. And so we'd got a lot of people that had kind of become familiar with my swim, and we were raising money, and we'd raised about $20,000 before I even got in the water. So even though I hadn't trained a lot, it was mentally consuming my brain before I got in the water.
Got it. Now, what was the period of time between when you first saw that TV program to the date that you swam in the water? Was it
It's a good
6
question.
months, 1 year?
I reckon it was about a year. It was about a year. I think it was around about September 2012. I saw the video, and then I was getting my visa in the moment. I was getting my visa organised, and I swam in July 2013. So I reckon 9 months. 9 months.
Okay. Now, so you were focused mentally on this, which now you know after you've completed the Ocean 7, the youngest person to do so ever.
Yeah.
What is the importance of having the proper mindset of really that mental training as opposed to the physical training? Because obviously you only had 4 weeks of.
Oh, well, it's a really great story, because I always tell this story because there was a lot of mental strength in it, but there was an incredible amount of luck for my first swim. My first ever English Channel swim, which I never got again, the conditions was like a mill pond. There was no wind. It was a beautiful day, and it was just so calm. And I know that if I had got any difficult conditions, I wouldn't have been able to make the swim, because I got in the water the first couple of hours and I'm like, oh my God, this guy can swim, because I was a good swimmer.
Yeah.
But I hadn't trained for this long distance stuff. And also I had done very little open water training. So I actually found that I got sick after the first hour, like really sick, because I get nauseous anytime. And whilst it was flat, there was swell. So like it wasn't choppy. It was just like a bit swelly at times. And so I was violently ill for the first, I'd say after the first 2 hours, I got really, really sick. I couldn't take anything down. And then at the same time, I hadn't practiced feeding because I hadn't really swum for a long period of time. So I just assumed that gels would be good. So I had gels, and my body didn't react well to gels. So it got to the point where the captain of the boat was feeding me his chocolate and banana that he'd kept for himself because I couldn't take anything down. So that's how underprepared I was. We also rocked up to England, and we had no passports with us, because I just assumed we didn't need passports to go to France. It was just a swim. My father, we had no lights because I didn't realize we'd be swimming in dark. I'd forged my practice 6-hour swim. I just got someone to say that I'd done it. And my dad was answering all these questions going, oh my God, I'm realizing how underprepared Tom is for this swim. And he was starting to be a bit panicky. And I thought they'd provide food for my parents. And so my parents didn't bring any food on the boat. And so it was really, for lack of a better word, a shit show on the whole boat. And so after a couple of hours whilst I was swimming, then I started feeling sick. Then I eventually started feeling a little bit better, but I was getting really tired because, again, I was vomiting a lot. I wasn't taking much food in. And I remember I was starting to fall asleep in the water. And I remember every 3 strokes, I was like, I always relate it to when you're having a micro sleep in the car. You just can't, when you're really tired, you can't help it. Yeah. And I would take in a little bit of water and choke a little bit, and then I would get back out. And I remember thinking, I don't have much left. And this was only about halfway. Oh. And then I remember I hit like a group of jellyfish, and it woke me straight back up.
Okay.
And I was really fortunate because I was literally awake, and I was in a bit of pain, but I was completely awake.
Wow.
And then after that moment, I started to feel a little bit better. And still, it was really fortunate. There was not much of a rip there was the water was perfect. So I could just kind of keep my swimming going. And then I think at about 10 hours, when I was about 3/4 of the way through, I was really struggling to the point where my stroke was starting to slow down so much that they were like, if he doesn't make the next hour, he won't get the right tidal conditions to be able to get pushed into France, and they'll push me away. And so I had to swim really quickly for the last hour. And my dad's going, Tom, swim, swim, swim. And I'm at the point where I've got nothing left. I'm like, Dad, why don't you get in the water? And Dad's like, well, if you can fight with me. And I was speaking a lot worse than just saying, Dad, you get in the water. You can imagine the effing and jeffing that was going on. And so he basically said, well, if you can fight with me, fight with the water. And I fought with the water. And then I think when I was very getting close, they put my mother into her bikini for motivation, because I knew once she got in her bikini and she was going to swim, that there was going to be hardly anything to do. And she swam in and did the last, I think, 400 meters with me. And it was one of those moments where I broke down, and I was so proud, but also like they'd come all that way and I didn't think I was going to make it. I couldn't believe I made it. And what I found out was when I actually got back, Dad put me on a drip, because Dad's a doctor. So thank God he put me on a drip, because I'd swallowed so much salt water and my throat was completely lacerated. So after the swim, we actually went to Italy for a couple of days, and for like a week, I couldn't eat anything because I'd swallowed so much salt water. It had burned down my throat and it had cuts, and I got thrush from that. So it was a really awful feeling, but it was a feeling that I deserved for how I treated the swim.
Wow. I've never heard in all my years in the sport, someone who welcomed jellyfish. And it was basically the catalyst for the second half of a great swim.
But you got to tell me, Steve, I'm sure you've never heard anybody as well that had been that underprepared for a swim.
Yeah. Underprepared. You were fortunate.
I was so lucky.
Yeah. Okay. So you finished that swim. Now, of course, you're very fortunate. Your father is taking medically care of you.
Yes.
That swim. And then how do you decide the next one?
Well, I think from that, what I really learned from that swim was probably the best lesson I think I've ever learned in my life, is what you're capable of doing. And so what I realized was it wasn't so much about swimming. It was more so about, 9 to 5 is it's kind of got this view that we work from 9 to 5, but you realize that I just ended up swimming for 15 hours straight. So working 9 to 5 is just what we pretend that is what work is about. You can actually push your body through really, really difficult things to do. And I was really fortunate enough, and I kind of related to my mum and how she'd lost a child and how she got through that. So for me, it was really about what can I do next to challenge myself? Because I just realized that I could swim in this channel with 3 weeks training. And even though I got really lucky conditions, people that tell you that you got to have a year of training under your belt, it's just not true, because I didn't need a year of training. So I realized that you can mentally push yourself through things that you might not think you could do. But what I did realize was my next goal was like, all right, well, I want to go do the North Channel. And the North Channel was the next swim. And the reason I chose that was because there had been only one other Aussie at the time that had done that, one other Australian. Okay. And because it was recognized as probably one of the toughest ocean swims on the planet. Yeah. At the time, I think there was only 22 people who'd done the swim. And so I was just like, yeah, that's the next swim. And I was going to, like, this time, I'm going to give it the respect it deserves. And so I approached this swim completely differently than I did the last time.
Got it. Now, at the time, you were still living in England, correct?
No. I'd moved back to Australia. Not long after that swim, I moved back to Australia.
Okay. Yeah. So how did you train differently, and how did you prepare differently for the North Channel?
Well, for the North Channel, it was interesting. I knew that weather was going to be a big component, and I wanted to get cold because everyone had told me it was a little bit colder than the North Channel, than the English Channel. And so I decided I was going to swim in my school pool that I remember swimming at school in wintertime, and it's not open because it gets down to like 13 degrees because it's a really old school pool that you can't actually swim competitively in, but it's cold. It was really cold. So what I did was I actually would sneak in at about 5 a.m., pull the cover off, and I would swim for about an hour in that pool with no cap on when it was about 13 degrees. And every day I battled with myself to be able to do that. And it was really difficult to do. But I did that for about 3 months, and I did it every day. And I had remembered thinking that even though I didn't do massive long swims, like 2 or 3 hour swims, I did every day for an hour for about 3 months. And I knew that the strength that I'd have in being able to push through that, I just felt really good. And I just knew I was a much better swimmer than when I did the English Channel. And I was aware of what I knew was going to be an obstacle in the next swim. What I've found in all those 7 ocean swims that I've done is that each swim you learn a different lesson. So what I'd realized is that I could swim through feeling sick. And I'd also realized that you have to you've got to find a way. Somehow I've got to find a way. And for me, it was always putting myself in someone else's shoes. And I had kind of learnt that from the English Channel swim. So for me, it was like, all right, well, mate, you are cold, you're sick, you're tired, and it's the last place you want to be. But your mother had lost a child, and she was struggling in her relationship with my father at the time, and she's got to look after 2 other kids. That doesn't go away after 13 hours.
Yeah.
But my pain does. So I get to have a hot bath. So for me, it was utilizing those type of my mother's pain and realizing that even though it's difficult to do these swims, you're not in the water forever.
Okay, so we've got the English Channel where you were kick-started by jellyfish.
Yeah.
We had the North Channel where you're swimming every day in the dark. I assume it's 5 o'clock. It's dark.
Yeah, it's dark. It's dark.
Cold,
it's pitch dark. Yeah.
Alone in an old school pool. How did North Channel swim go?
North Channel swim was really funny because it was another story, but it was a different one. This time, I was really terrified because I got over there and we weren't going to swim. The captain, and these sea captains, as I'm sure many people could testify, they don't have a lot of personality. So instead of feeling sympathetic, the fact that you've flown all the way from Australia to Northern Ireland to this swim, they're just like, yep, you're not going to swim. We're not going to risk your life. Instead of, oh my God, I'm sorry, I can't believe, but we don't want to jeopardize your life. They're just really matter of fact, and it really pissed me off. Anyway, so he told me that I'm not going to get a swim. So we checked in on Monday. We had an 8-day window or a 7-day window every day. Nah. And even the last day, he said, on the 6th day, he said, nah. And then we were checking the weather all the time on our phones. I'd never become so accustomed to checking weather in my life and just hoping that the wind would die down a tiny bit. And they said that it was going to be about a 6-hour window. And so we went to the captain, and he actually was driving over to us, and he told us that I'd get the opportunity to swim. And I broke down in tears. I was just so excited to have the fact that I could swim because we'd come all that way. And again, we were raising money for another charity of the school that I was teaching at the time. And we were raising money for one of the kids that had cancer. And so it meant so much to me, particularly because I'd trained a lot harder too. And so when I got in the water, even though it was cold, I remember the whole time I was so motivated. I think I did it in like 10 hours. There was a few jellyfish stings, but there wasn't much problem. And I remember getting out of the swim, I was pumping my fist up. And I remember they finally dropped me off after the swim. And I remember I ran from the boat to the hotel because I was so sticky with the gel. And I remember I got out and stayed on the rums till about 3 a.m. And I was thinking, yeah, you've done, you were fit enough for this one.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent. And the next one, what was the next? But at this time now, you're aiming for the Ocean 7, correct?
After this swim, I was like, yes, I can do the Ocean 7.
Got it.
So I think my goal was at that point, I had started to think, all right, I want to be the first Australian to swim the Ocean 7. That was my goal. And so then I went and funny enough, I booked the 2 American swims, and they were by far the easiest ones to get into. So I went and did the Molokai and the Catalina swim. Now my goal was I did those swims. I don't know if anyone else has done this as well, but I did it in exactly 7 days of each other.
Wow.
So I did the Molokai swim, and the Molokai swim was really difficult, but I was strong enough and everything that I'd kind of learned from the other swims. But the one thing that was really different about this one is obviously it was good weather. And you can't wear a rash vest, and I've got very fair skin, as you can probably see. Yeah. And I don't know if you've seen any photos of my Instagram, but my back got so badly burnt that by the time that I'd finished that swim, I went to bed that night, and the next day I woke up and my back stuck to the sheet that I was on. It was that bad. Yeah. So my dad had to kind of help me cut it off, and I had to basically be in, I had anti-cortisone and anything that could kind of stop the pain, because I couldn't put it in salt water. It just stung. And then finally in a week's time, it finally got a little bit better. And then the Catalina swim was pretty good. So I was able to do those 2 swims in the space of a week, but it was another challenge because I just didn't know if I'd kind of thought, you could go and do a 44-kilometer swim on Saturday, and then the following week you're doing a 30K swim. Though again, it was just the same thing. It was just like, just because it's a long way to go, you just got to mentally, you've had a bit of rest, you can do it. So I just kind of, was fortunate enough that the back had healed, and luckily enough got the swims done overseas.
Got it. Now you mentioned your father again. Were your parents going on every swim with you?
my mum and dad went on. It's funny. I've got a very dysfunctionally functional family, but my mum and dad aren't together. But my mum's with her partner. But my dad and mum are very good mates, and so my mum, dad, and my mum's partner went on. They went on both the American ones, and then in the English Channel, my mum and dad were there, and the North Channel, my mum, my dad, and my mum's partner were there. So yeah, and then my brother came on a few different people have come on a few of the different swims.
Wow. So this is a whole family,
Yeah.
School, charity.
They would tell you, it's quite funny that they really enjoyed it, and they had a huge part to play in all the swims, not just because they helped me out financially at times, but because to motivate me when I was feeling bad. Especially my father my mother couldn't, because she'd get too upset and emotional, so she'd be down, but my father knew how to get the best out of me, what to say, because even when you're swimming for so long, just a little fist pump when you don't know if you're going to make it it gives you such great motivation. And so Dad was quite smart on when to do that and when to push me and all those different things.
Great. And was there any other special happening difficulty with the other ones, the Cook Strait or Tsugaru Strait in Japan or Strait of Gibraltar?
Yeah, the Japanese swim had the only real significant, interesting things, I suppose, that I would talk about was we didn't have really any. We had one really interesting animal encounter in the Cook Strait. So the Cook Strait was my last swim in New Zealand, and it was the swim that I was kind of a little bit flat about, because I wanted to be the first Australian to swim the 7, and an Australian had swum the Cook Strait about a month before me to become the first Australian. So I'd had this goal of about 7 years, and this guy beats me in the space of a month. So and look, I'm not going to pretend I wasn't upset about it, but I was. He's a lovely guy, but it was a goal that I had of mine, and obviously he got it, so it was fantastic. So I was a little bit kind of, my motivation was lacking a tiny bit. However, what had happened is, every swim we'd learn different things and how to combat different situations. And this one, Dad had come up with a drug to give me, because he's an anaesthetist, that would make me not so nauseous. Oh. So he gave me this drug before I swam that he said would make me not give me such bad, make me feel so drowsy and nauseous while I'm swimming, because I get really sick. Anyway, what he didn't tell me that it would make me feel depressed. And I have never felt depressed in my life. So I'm going out to swim. It's a miserable day. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I haven't got my goal. What am I doing here? No one cares about your swims. I was very self-indulged, and not how I'd usually be thinking about these swims. I'd usually be excited for everybody and excited for the fact that we're raising money. Now I was a bit more self-indulged. And then as we were swimming, everyone on the boat can tell you, this ginormous killer whale with a fin, I'm not lying, that would be 6 feet. The largest dorsal fin I've ever seen in my life. It jumped right out of the boat right next to us. Oh, and wow. We'd known that the area was renowned, because I'd read things about there being great whites in the area, not these killer whales. And so we actually said to the boat captain, how often have you seen that? And he actually said, that's the first time I've ever seen that. And he'd been doing these swims for 20 years. And Philip Rush is his name. He'll testify. He'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about. And so I started, and then I jumped in the water, I reckon about maybe 2 or 3 kilometers from where this thing had jumped out of the water. And I was thinking, if this thing, not that it would eat, but I was just thinking, I'm in the water with something that could just snap me up in 1 second. And so I started swimming that swim, and
how far were you in the swim? Midway?
Hadn't started.
Where were you when you saw?
I was about 2 kilometers from where they dropped me off to start the swim.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I was terrified. So that was it. And then I got in the water, and it was funny. For the first 2 hours, I remember I hated Phil Rush, because he kept telling me how to swim, because I kept swimming away from the boat, and I wanted to kill him because I was already feeling not well. And then eventually the way that I was feeling started to wear off, and I started to feel good again. But the other funny thing was, my uncle had come all the way over, because he'd sponsored some of my swims, and he'd had a massive night on the beers the night before, and he'd missed the boat. So he was crying, going, oh my God, I've missed it. So he hired a private boat, spent $1,000 to catch up to us. So he spent the last 2 hours on the boat and swum the last 100 meters with me.
Oh, okay.
So everyone had a little heroic effort throughout the different swims that I did.
Yeah. Did you see or hear the whale before it leaped out of the water?
I was looking at the back of the boat and I saw it jump out of the water. I couldn't believe it. I've never, in fact, if I wish I'd seen it after the swim so I could have enjoyed it, because I was too worried and stressed. I didn't get to really, all it did is really make me scared.
Got it.
Yeah.
Wow.
It wasn't like one of those beautiful euphoric moments where you go, oh my God, I'm going to be swimming in this beautiful atmosphere. It was one of these scary moments where I don't want to be in the water and what am I doing with this thing?
Wow. Now, Philip was on the rib next to you, I assume. Was he
Yes.
calm, cool, and collected?
He was calm, cool, collected the whole way. He was brilliant. I actually think that of all the swims I've ever done, I ended up doing that swim in, I think, just under 6 hours or 5 hours and 56 minutes.
Wow.
And that was by far my fastest swim. And that had a large part to do with how quickly he was motivating me. And I couldn't believe it, because usually in almost every swim, I thought I was further than where I was. This was one of the few swims where I thought I was further away than where I was, and I was almost there. And I was, oh my God, fantastic. It's great.
Oh, great, great. Now, you've raised money throughout these swims. Can you tell us a little bit about the why you chose the charities and why they meant something important to you?
Yeah, I mean, every time I raised the charity, it was based on a circumstance that I was in. So when I was teaching, I was in my class and I was teaching a religious class, and I wanted it to I just said, guys, look, I know we were studying something at the time and it was about, putting in for somebody else. And I said, look, I'm doing this swim coming up and I want to recognize people in your lives that that are important to you. And I said, you do a presentation towards me and, you try and make it as creative as possible and try and hit my heartstrings, and, whichever one or the ones that I think are really powerful or emotional or helpful, I'll choose. And it felt a bit bad saying that, because there was a lot, but there were two boys that really struck out. One had a grandmother that had multiple sclerosis, and the other one had a little brother that had cancer. And I couldn't choose between the two. And so we decided to raise money for MS, and then we decided to raise money for kids' cancer. And the two boys, and we did amazing things through the school. We ended up raising, I think it was $30,000, a bit more than that, about $38,000.
Wow.
And the school got involved in it, the community got involved in it, even the media got involved in it. So it was a really fantastic thing to do for the boys, and the boys played a really active role as well. They went around speaking about their experiences, and it motivated me so much to be able to, use a skill set, a very odd skill set, to be able to swim a long distance, but to be able to recognize really inspirational people. And then for my other swims, I would raise money I went and worked in the country for 3 years. And so there was a young man that had a really terrible accident where he had to learn to walk again, learn to talk again. And he had a brain accident. And so I reached out to him and reached out to his family, and we ended up raising money for him. And then there was this beautiful little girl at the same country town that had cancer, and she was just kind of in remission from it, but she'd missed out on a few things. So we raised money for her to be able to enjoy her life a little bit after she'd had the cancer ordeal. So it was always circumstantial. And a lot of the time I'd like to raise money for the people that I could kind of help and see the impact that the money could have on them personally.
Got it. So you complete the Ocean 7 as the youngest person ever. You have more future goals, or are you just gonna keep on giving motivational speeches? What's the plan?
Oh, look, it's funny. I suppose at the moment, I was kind of giving myself into work. At the moment, I'm working during the week in a company in the city, and then I work at my family's nursing home on the weekends. And so my time is really taken up, especially during this COVID environment. You don't know if you're going to have a job. So my time's been really dedicated to giving it to my work. In regards to swims, I don't know if I will get back into it. Like a lot of the people that I've done that do swimming, for them, it's a real love. It's a love. They get in there every day. They do something. For me, swimming's always been, I love swimming. Like I'll go in and have a dip. I don't love actually swimming for ages. I like just, like most people like to swim, go to the beach when it's nice and jump in the water. What I loved about these swims were they were a challenge. I love a challenge. So I've had to kind of juggle a few things with these swims in the past with university and work. And so giving myself to other aspects of my life has been kind of good, because swimming took so much, not so much out of me, but so much in regards to I would have to take a week off here or a week off there. Yeah. And so the last 2 years have been good, not having to think about what is involved with a swim.
Yeah. And if you had to sum up for your family, for the boys that you taught, what are the 2 or 3 lessons that this Ocean 7 achievement taught you?
I think the number one thing it taught me is certainly to know that you can do more. Okay. And I think the most important thing what annoys me sometimes is when you hear motivational speakers. I can't really rip off anyone particularly, but they always say, you can make that team or you can get that grade. And it's just not true. Some people can't swim from England to France. They can't. They might not have legs. They might not have arms. There's reasons why they can't do that. But it's not to say you can't do more. And so when I ever say the lessons that I learned, I give myself goals every week, and I so many of them I don't make. One of them will be like, I don't want to have any fast food for the week. So the thing that I learned from doing these swims is just give yourself little goals to make yourself a better person, whether it be call somebody that you haven't spoken to in a week, or work a little bit harder today, or send an email, or, go to the gym, or get up a little bit earlier, or just, there's so many different things we can do. And I suppose in my swims, it taught me that just try and do something a little bit better every day, or once a week, or just try and be a little bit better in any way you can. And then I suppose the second lesson I learned was that, you've got to have a few moments of not worrying about whether or not you fail at something. And it took not making a few of my swims to realize that by not achieving something, by not making a swim, because there are a couple that I didn't make, you haven't failed. What annoyed me at one time was maybe I could have gone a little bit better, but that to me is failing. Is not having a go and not doing your best. But if you've done that and you haven't met the goal, then you should be so proud. And so I see people doing that all the time. And whether or not it was when I was a teacher, it was the thing that I really looked at, and the thing that I admire most in people is not failure, is that failing to actually pick it up and have a go.
Wow. Oh, that was a great way to end a very entertaining, educational interview. Thank you, Thomas, and congratulations for everything you've done, and good luck on the future.
No, mate, I appreciate it. And like I've said as well to you a few times in emails, I reached out to you because I saw Parat Kohli. Did he reach out to you? An Indian swimmer that had done the He reached out and I saw him got it, and I was like, do you know what? I would never. With any of my swims, I've never wanted to get anything, but I was like, you know what, if I have grandkids one day and being able to see my name in the Guinness Book of Records, I said, that's something I would love to be able to pass on before he beats my record as well. I wanted to make sure that I had something there to be able to talk about. So I just wanted to say, on behalf of myself and my family, we'll really appreciate it. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done, and it makes the swims that I do certainly worthwhile, because I don't get to talk about it often, but it's great to reflect and have a chat with someone like yourself who is interested in it. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and keep on carrying on. Pleasure. And if you ever want to reach out and you need anything, I'm always here. Thank you. No worries. See you, mate.